Hello, everyone. My name is Simon Taylor. Welcome to the webinar today that we have with Miro and Shawn about avoiding and failing a Java audit, migrate your JVMs. So let's hang on a couple of minutes. There's a few more people joining, and then we'll start. Hello again, for those who are just joining, we're just waiting a couple more minutes and then we'll start the webinar. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the webinar, How to Avoid Failing a Java Audit and Migrate Your JVMs. My name is Simon Taylor. I run all of our partners and alliances at Azul. And joining me is Shawn. Shawn, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, my name is Shawn Donohue. I'm the VP of Marketing at Miro Consulting.
Excellent. Thanks for joining, Shawn. So this webinar will take about 20-25 minutes, plenty of time for questions. Just a bit of housekeeping. If you do actually have questions that you think of as we go through this, please just drop them in the chat. We'll pick them up at the end and certainly can address any concerns you have. There's a really good amount of feedback and material that we have during this webinar today that I'm sure will prompt some thoughts in your mind. First of all, though, I'm going to ask Shawn to just briefly introduce Miro, and I'll do the same for Azul, and then we'll really get into the meat of the content today.
Sure, great. Thanks, Simon. Miro Consulting is the leading global provider of software asset management, subscription management services for Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, Amazon Web Services, and Salesforce. And just to give you the brief version, the reason we're here with Azul today is because we're a company that does Oracle audit defense, Oracle audit negotiations in general. And when Java suddenly became something you needed to license, a lot of organizations around the world have come to us to sort of help them with that. And as part of it, we have started working with Azul here as well to help Oracle clients with their or non-Oracle clients, whoever it is, with their situation with Java. And basically, working with us, there's no risk. We have a performance guarantee that the amount of cost savings we find for you will be more than our fees. And when we work with Azul, it's very easy to find that kind of cost savings. So that's about why we're here. And Simon?
Thank you. Thank you, Shawn. So now let me give you a bit of background on Azul. So Azul, you may have heard of us, may not. We're about a 22-year-old company. We are literally the next best alternative to Oracle in the Java world. We've been around a lot longer in the Java world than Oracle owning Java, for example. And over multiple years now, we've amassed a considerable client base of people that use our technology in contrast to other JVM or JDK solutions out there. Largely because we provide excellent support, we provide performance tuning, application tuning solutions for Java. But most importantly, right now, as you'll see in a minute, we're providing savings specifically in relation to license costs. And those savings can run north of 80% sometimes compared to, say, what, for example, Oracle are charging. So we have the largest community of Java developers outside of anybody else in the industry today, and also run a lot of things like Java user groups. Fuj, which is another Java expert group as well. And we are 100% focused on anything to do with this space that we're in. So as you'll see as we go through this, that's a beautiful pairing with Miro, who obviously spend a lot of time talking to customers about licensing challenges and exposure as well. So that brings a nice segue into why we're here, because last year, obviously, Oracle have done a number of things to Java over the years. Remember, Java used to be free. Licensing used to be free, 2017-ish. Then Oracle introduced a licensing scheme for that. And then that was based on consumption. So that would be server infrastructure and desktop infrastructure. And then over the years now, moving into the last year, particularly in January 2023, Oracle changed the licensing metric around Java to be employee-based. And you'll see why in a minute. But of course, that's generated a massive amount of concern. And in fact, I think the latest research that both we provide at Azul, which we do a survey every year, and also what Gartner is suggesting is somewhere in the region of 72 to 78% of organizations just very concerned about this right now and the impact that could have on their organization. So there's a lot of momentum to try and figure out what to do in this space. Okay. Now, linked to that, obviously, there's triggers occurring from an Oracle perspective. And again, not to get too much into this, but there are situations where you're getting an Oracle sales call, which is basically code for we're just sort of investigating what are you doing, what you're not doing, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to charge you something. That's typically a very popular hidden audit type strategy, and I'm sure Shawn's going to get into that a little bit in a second. And then, of course, there is the existing paid Java customer that's now concerned that they're out of contract compliance and that this new employee metric will mean a massive hike in a bill that they will get from Oracle on renewal, which is driving a lot of concern, particularly for those organizations back in 2019 where Oracle would have done a 3 or 5 year contract, and those are coming to fruition right now. So it's generating some concern. So with that, I'm going to pass you a little bit to Shawn, and Shawn's going to get into a bit more about what that means from an audit point of view.
Thanks, Simon. So one of the things we want to stress at the beginning here is that Oracle is auditing both their clients who have some other Oracle products or many other Oracle products. Maybe they've been an Oracle client for many years. They're being audited for Java, but they're not the only ones. Other organizations who don't have any Oracle products whatsoever are also getting audited for Java, because Oracle knows or has ways of finding out if those organizations have Java. Right now, we're estimated that if you have other Oracle products, roughly 20% of those organizations have purchased a Java license. And that has, in our experience with our customers, pretty much exclusively fallen into two groups. We've had groups that waited till they get that phone call, and they have very limited options at that point. And we have groups that basically knew this was coming, wanted to get out ahead of it, and gave themselves some runway to really make some have better options. So one of the things we suggest is, when Simon had mentioned earlier about that Java sales call, if you wait till that point, it's possibly too late for you to make any real decisions, and you're going to end up paying the most amount of money. So we suggest you investigate this as early as possible, because it's a matter of it's a matter of when, not if, that Oracle eventually will contact your organization for a Java subscription purchase. And we can tell you that certain types of organizations like financial institutions, manufacturers, governmental institutions, they're the ones that we see getting hit the most frequently, but Oracle's definitely starting to work their way down to other industries as well. When I say government, I include education there, because Oracle sees them sort of in that same bucket. We've actually assisted a lot of organizations, like I said, because we started in this world of helping Oracle clients with their typical negotiations and contract renewals, things like that. We were the ones that a lot of people reached out to help with this Java process. So we've helped dozens and dozens of clients who've reached out to us, probably over 100 at this point, with their situation with Java, and help bring them to the right decision. Next slide, Simon. So the way this all started, the most recent change, so Oracle announced Java would be require subscription all the way back in 2019. But what made it really different and expensive is that, as Simon said before, they used to do it based on where the Java was actually installed, and they don't do that anymore. They had too many problems with their clients, their Java using clients, not being able to find all the installations, undercounting it. So they just said, okay, no more of that. We're just going to make you have a license for every single employee. And when I say everyone, I mean even if they don't use Java. If you've got a guy who you pay to sweep the floors and he never touches a computer at all, he still needs a license for Java according to Oracle. And this makes it extremely expensive as compared to the way it used to be. And the other thing we're seeing with our clients we're working with is they're not using the full Oracle definition of Java. And it is of employee, and it is extensive. It's your full-time, your part-time, your temporary employees, all of your full-time, your contractors, your agents, interns, you name it. They all require a Java license. Let me tell you, if your dog could log in, your dog would need a user license. Next slide. So how do you end up getting audited for Java? Well, there's a lot of ways. Some of them are your fault, some of them aren't. So one of the things is Oracle will call into your organization. They won't just call you if you're the person who signs the bills and signs the contracts and all. If you're the point person, they'll call other people too. And they'll start asking them questions. Do you have Java? Do you use it? what other software do you run? And your employees can inadvertently, they think they're talking to just a vendor, and in reality, they're giving the vendor all this information that will end up leading you to an audit. If you talk to Oracle about purchasing things and they say, hey, you should buy a Java subscription, and you say, I don't really think I need one, maybe we'll do it a little later, you're going to get audited for Java. They already know you have it. They already talked to you. You were an opportunity in their forecast, and it got close loss, and they're not going to like that. And if you are really using it, you would really need a subscription. They know if you go through some sort of change, if you purchased another organization, if you divested, any sort of large structural changes, Oracle will suspect that maybe the licensing wasn't done right. So for example, we find a common situation where one company sells another one company divests. Well, all of a sudden that new entity, even though the licenses went with it, Oracle doesn't view that new entity as the purchaser of the licenses and expects that new entity to repurchase all the licenses. So that's one of the reasons they'll come after you in that kind of situation. You may have an employee call up Oracle and say, hey, I think we might need a Java subscription. Do you know if I need one? They're going to say, yes, you need a Java subscription. So make sure your employees know not to call Oracle and ask those kinds of questions. And then the most one you would not expect is your Java installation itself is telling Oracle that it's there. Now, it's not doing anything nefarious. It's just checking for updates for itself. And when it does that, its IP address gets logged at Oracle's Java servers that say whether that Java needs an update. And that tells Oracle that you have Java installed at your organization. And of course, the more times they see your IP address, the more installations and employees they think you have, the more likely you are to be audited. Next slide. And like I just said, Java phones home. And that's its default installation. If it's default installed, it will call home. It will ask the user if it wants to update itself. If you've been able to auto updates, it'll just auto update itself for you. And what's important here for my IT folks in the room is that Java will auto update itself from a free version to a paid version with, I don't want to say no warning, maybe some small print. But if you have employees who they see screens that say, do you want to install this? Do you want to say, and they go, yes, whatever, go, I got things to do. They will end up upgrading themselves out of compliance. And like I said, it'll update itself out of compliance unless you specifically turn off that feature. Next slide.
Hey, Shawn, just let me add something on this one.
Yeah.
This is an important point, actually, because a lot of applications out there, and you may not even know they're written in Java, for example, are packaged up with a free version of Java, which using this approach becomes a paid licensable version of Java very quickly and creates a licensing liability that a lot of organizations didn't even know they actually had. So this is what's causing a lot of the problem as well. Sorry.
No problem. And if you're looking to say, if your next question is, okay, how do I turn that off? You can either contact us at Miro, contact Azul. I think we're both able to walk you through that. But yes, contact us after the event and we can help you out there. So this is a table. And we're going to send you this information. So if you're like me and you're screenshotting everything as you go, we'll send you this information afterwards. So, you don't have to keep up with that. So this is effectively all the versions of Java that you might see in the wild. There are versions before this, like 4, 5, 6, but you're very unlikely to encounter them. So right now, the free one for the next few months is Java 17. And then the one after that will be Java 21, excuse me. They're both free now. But what I want to just kind of point out to you is there are LTS, you see it in the table, second column says LTS, that says long-term support. So you may see some like 18, 19, 20 that are free. And we want to point out to look at that long-term support. And what that means is if you look at when it's released and when it stops being available for support, it's real quick. It's 6 months intervals. So don't waste your time trying to update to one of those. You want one of the ones in red here. If you do go with it, because those are the ones that are free. But like I said before, it's incredibly difficult to go, even if you go through the whole effort of making sure your entire organization is in fact using a free version and they're not using any commercial features with that free version. It's so likely you missed one or that somebody will update themselves out of compliance and it triggers your entire organization to need it. So I just want to tell you, this is kind of like the when Mission Impossible and the guy's going through the hallway with the laser beams. Like, yes, it's possible that you might be able to run your whole organization on a free version for a while, but it's a matter of when, not if, that somebody gets you out of that. Next slide. All right, so we mentioned the new metric is per employee. The old one was called per processor, if you know NUP named Use Plus. And you might even see an older metric called perpetual Java SE license. What I wanted to point out to you here real quick is this is the cost. So take a look at those numbers, and you can see that the cost per month of a Java subscription, you do get a discount, but if you've got 40, 50,000 employees, that's going to add up really fast. Next slide, Simon. And what Simon mentioned earlier is they don't call you up and say, hello, this is a Java audit. They say, hello, this is a sales inquiry. We just want to talk to you about Java. So if you get a sales team, Java sales team person, they are effectively, if you're familiar with Oracle Glass Global License Advisory Service, the audit team, so to speak. They're not the same team, but they function the same way. Global License Advisory Services. So they used to be called License Management Services, if you're familiar with LMS. They changed that acronym yearly, I swear. They're just going to call you up and say, hey, we looked in our sources and we know how many employees you have. So who should we send the bill to? And like I mentioned, these users can upgrade themselves easily out of compliance, even if you buckle everything down. And if you do end up negotiating with Oracle, all we would say is don't do it. They do it all day, every day. They've done it with hundreds of organizations. Don't let it be you're alone on your first time. Get some help with that negotiation so that you can see the real cost and see if you really want to pay them or what's better for you, an alternative. Like Azul. Next slide. And this is my big gotcha slide right here. So I know a lot of you are thinking, and we encounter clients all the time who say, okay, well, if Oracle finally comes knocking on my door, I'll just buy a 1-year subscription. I'll get my act together. I'll find an alternative like Azul, and then, I'll get off of it. Well, no, you won't. And here's why. If you buy a 1-year subscription, it is effectively a 5-year subscription, and they will backdate you all the way to 2019. I guess we're up to 6 years at this. No, we're at 5 years. So they will backdate you all the way to 2019 and charge you the full price from there. So you'll pay for 5 and you'll get a 1 year going forward. And it's only, in fact, if you pay for a full 5-year subscription, do you get any sort of discount pricing? Does it start when you actually sign up? So, like again, I said, if your plan was to wait and see, this is the big gotcha that comes at the end of your wait and see period. So we really recommend clients and anybody who uses Java really look into what their options are. And I'll quickly mention one of the reasons that we do this with Azul is because Azul, we heard about Azul from our clients. They said, hey, we've got these different versions. We've got AWS has got a version. Microsoft's got a version. Can you help point us in a direction? And we weren't Java technical experts. We're licensing experts. So we ended up hearing from a lot of our clients that Azul was actually the better option compared to the rest of the non-Oracle Java products. I'll let Simon tell you why. But next slide.
Okay. So let me pick up a little bit from what Shawn's just been saying, because essentially all of these conversations mean that basically you're one of two types of particular customer. You're an existing Oracle Java paying customer today, and maybe you're trying to understand your license exposure, old versus new. Maybe your contract doesn't allow much to change and or isn't really adaptable. So now you're just really going to be on the new metric, whether you like it or not. And maybe you're looking at alternatives. Maybe the goal is, hang on a minute, I don't want to pay 3 to 4 times what I was paying before. So I just want to look at what can I go to, what can I do, how quickly can I move. This is very much the type of thing that Miro get into all the time. And of course, where we come in from an Azul perspective. But the other type of customer scenario is when really and candidly, maybe you've been using Java. Maybe you had it embedded in an application, didn't realize that it wasn't free when you start updating and patching it and providing support around it. And you've just been getting away with it. One of the reasons why Oracle are doing what they're doing right now is because maybe you'd said, you can't audit me, and maybe you stopped them at the door. But now they have a way of giving you a bill just based on the number of employees, which typically is on your website. I don't know whether, Shawn, you have some insight into this as well, but that's a lot of what's going on, right? Yeah. I think, yeah, I was going to say, I knew you would agree. But at the same time, a lot of people start thinking, well, how do I reduce the burden of Java? How do I minimize what sort of support I need? And then, of course, security comes into bear as well. So we understand this space very well, and hopefully the direction I'm going to give you right now will help you through this and make you realize it's just not a panic moment. There are a very good set of options available to you. So what a lot of customers do, to Shawn's point, is they sit there and they do nothing. They just ignore it and hope it goes away, and it very rarely does go away, particularly now that Oracle have this mechanism to just give you a bill once they know that you're using it. So you can try and negotiate, but Oracle think of you, even if you're not a customer, as a customer. The moment you pick the phone up and acknowledge that maybe you've got some licensing, the worst thing that you can possibly do is give them a whole bunch of data, because at that point that you're just giving them all the information they need to definitely hit you with a bill. You can try and remove Java and or reduce it, and some people try and do that or go with a free alternative, but there are a couple of gotchas we're going to talk about in a minute. One of them is that you may not know that a lot of your core applications in your business are using Java, and it's almost impossible to remove Java because there isn't really a good alternative. It's designed for large-scale business applications, and if you're a finance company, a healthcare company, if you're in the public sector, for example, communications, interconnect billing, things like that, they're mostly all running on Java. Even if you're in the e-commerce world and you're using a merchandising site or brand awareness, or you're using anything that does sort of add to cart or any sort of insight engine technology, most of that is underpinned by Java. So you're not removing it anytime soon. So then the question is, what do you want support for, and what do you want security around? Because when you go with free, you don't get security updates. So if you're in a critical business environment, that can be an issue. So most people then quickly going through those exercises tend to move to a migrate conversation, which is what are the alternatives, which is sort of where Azul comes in. And the tricky bit is if you spend too long in the other three areas, you'll end up with running out of time with Oracle. So we try and work with Miro, we try and work with all of our partners actually to get those options available and understood further in the process. So even when you look at license exposure, you can immediately identify, okay, well, yeah, sure, my license has gone up by 300% for Oracle. Maybe I can minimize it by 10%, but if I migrate to Azul, for example, you can save 80% on what you were paying today. So it could be very interesting for you. And Gartner are behind a lot of the good analysis right now of what's actually going on in this space. And nearly 80% of people that would have been Oracle licensing Oracle now are moving to some other third party, are trying to minimize their impact on Oracle license just because of this issue. And it's got worse, really. So the impact is maybe paying your Oracle 1 year, maybe having to backdate and pay for 3 or 5 years. But the majority of organizations, when that comes due, whether it's now, a year from now, or 3 years from now, you'll be wanting to move off. And Azul operates something we call freedom from Java. Freedom from Gartner. So my teeth back in. Freedom from Oracle. And that's very much a staged way for you to move off of Oracle, even if you've had to commit, and move to an alternative. So when the next renewal comes around, you're not hit. So we can work through that with you. Now, what does that look like in terms of value? So if you stick with Oracle, most of the time it's at least double, if not triple, what you're paying today. The only scenario you ever get away with, and I guess Shawn can weigh in on this one as well, is if you just so happen to have exactly the same amount of infrastructure and that hasn't changed for some period of time, and maybe Oracle offer you a concession. Is that the case, Shawn? What do you think?
It's a tough call. We tend to see it on a client by client basis. A lot of times, whether they're going to give you a concession depends on, are you buying something new from them? And that's where we see it most often.
Cool. But if you move to Azul, for example, and the product we talk about a lot is our platform core technology. We have 3 products. One's called Platform Core. The other one's called Platform Prime, which is actually for cloud cost, cloud management around Java, which is a much more specific solution, which is our own binaries, not an OpenJDK solution. And then we have something we call Intelligence Cloud that is all about really truly understanding how Java's working in your environment and it's not, and where you can drive efficiencies, both license and developer operations. That might be a good alternative for you if you really truly don't know very much about what's going on with your Java environment. Then you can use that technology that then feeds into maybe using something like Core. But Core is usually saving at least 70% versus Oracle, and that's usually Oracle licensing today. It's a very, very compelling story, and it's a drop-in replacement. So just to demystify anybody's concerned about how long it actually takes to migrate, because Oracle do a good job of scaring people here. The longest migration that we've ever done is about 9 months at Azul, and that was a massive organization, 250,000 employees. But it can be as quick as a weekend. For example, we often talk about a leading global bank with 200,000 desktops. We migrated all of those from Oracle to Azul in a weekend. It can be fast, right? Depends on the complexity of your Java environment, but most of the time, it's nothing like the years that Oracle talk about. It's manageable. even just looking at one person's time and effort within, a number of months to drive this type of change. So it's really, really compelling. So we talked a little bit about the product set. I'm not going to go into this too much detail, but core is obviously what we talk about when we talk about drop-in replacement. But if you have a need to maybe improve your application performance by 20% or reduce the footprint of your Java application by 30% because it's taking too much cloud compute, for example, that's where Platform Prime comes in. We drive those savings there. We improve the efficiency of the Java applications and give it more life. We give it a much more realistic, modernized approach to how it can be used in your organization versus the alternative, which is spend years trying to redevelop it in something else, like Python, for example, which will never provide the same level of service. And then Intelligence Cloud, we just talked about that. Okay, so let's just talk about how we compete to Oracle. We are literally an exact replacement for Oracle Java SE. There are some nuances. We provide exactly the same support and things like that, security, patching, builds, but we also, to Shawn's point, we actually support older versions of Java much longer than Oracle do. So a lot of legacy applications still sit in Java 6, 7, and 8, and people don't want to migrate, or I should say update those applications because it's a massive effort to go and change the Java version sometimes. Well, you don't need to. If you go move to Azul, you can maintain support with us and we will provide that on 6, 7, and 8. Now, even if you renewed with Oracle and you tried to, and you did negotiate and pay a higher price for Oracle, if you do have any of those applications, Oracle won't support it. They'll force you to upgrade. And now you're into several hundred thousands of cost just to upgrade those applications. So when you look at the whole ROI of this, it becomes compelling to just do something else versus sticking with Oracle.
And Simon, just let me jump in real quick and mention there, one of the biggest misconceptions we find is people think that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are free versions, and they're oftentimes not. If you updated them to whatever their recent updates were, they're paid versions. In fact, every time we've come across them, they've been paid. So just a bit of a myth to clear up.
Thanks for that, Shawn. And just building on that, right? When we look at what else do we do in relation to Oracle, it's identical. We provide security updates, patch updates. We're talking about that in a second. But the big thing that we do is that we have a longer commercial production cycle on Java releases, but we don't audit. So literally, with us, it's just an agreement that you let us know what you're using internally. If by any means that you do have a large amount of Java use, we do unlimited licensing, so you never need to worry about it again. And we still make that, the 70-80% cheaper than Oracle scenario. We also do a couple of things. We call it patent non-contamination identification and certification around that, which makes sure that we're not inheriting licensing from a third party inside your Java estate that will cause other license liability, but also inherently security issues around the way that libraries are combined in the Java world as well. We spend a lot of time on that. And we, as part of Intelligence Cloud, we have a vulnerability detection technology that will identify where your Java needs to be patched. Wow, what an interesting concept versus having a load of your DevOps teams do regression testing and figuring out can they identify any particular threat weakness on a Java application that you weren't aware of through the scanning products. So it's much more intelligent, driven by the JVM itself. So lots of good stuff we do here that is the same or in some cases better because of the way that we provide the security updates. And if we just talk about security updates a second, because this is a big reason why people don't end up going to a free Java solution when they're considering change, or maybe you're in that camp where you are sort of using Oracle licensing but getting away with it, right? You don't want to go to something like a Corretto or a Microsoft solution because you're not going to get the same security updates in the same way that Oracle provide them and Azul provides. And we provide security updates in a format we call CPU, which is critical patch updates, as opposed to PSUs, which are patch set updates. Now, the difference between PSU and CPUs is CPUs are incremental. So you're getting the latest security patches that you can incrementally apply into your Java environment to make it more secure instantly. If you rely on open source, like, for instance, the JDKs that are like a Corretto or something like that, you are only going to get an update once a quarter. And then usually those updates aren't fully tested. So most people wait 6 months before they apply that and regression test it into their environment, which leaves you A, vulnerable for 6 months, and B, a huge amount of effort required by your DevOps team to regression test, which in many cases, the cost of the resource requirement is the same as what you would have done if you'd come to Azul and pay for the licensing fees. So it's actually, again, very compelling when you think about it this way. So in summary, and I realize we're at time, I promised you 30 minutes. Come talk to us. I mean, that was the whole essence of the conversation today, which is if you're thinking about doing nothing, come talk to us. That very rarely works out. If you're negotiating with Oracle, as Shawn said, don't do it by yourself. If you're looking to remove, then maybe get some intelligence to understand, can you actually remove it? Or do you have dead code or things that can be turned off that reduce your liability, but minimize what you need, and we'll help you through that process. But above all, look at alternatives, because it puts you in a much better, much more comfortable, risk-averse position when you think about that. Shawn, any
Sure.
final?
Yeah. I want to jump in real quick here. A couple of things to point out. Like I said earlier, when we're dealing with a client and they run out of runway, they run out of time, they run out of options, and they end up having to sign a contract that they didn't want to sign, the number one way they got themselves into that position was just waiting and seeing. So, that's something you obviously don't want to do. I mentioned earlier. But the number two way they get themselves into that position, specifically the clients who say, oh, okay, we probably should look into doing something. And this is what we experienced, is they went out, they decided to go third party. They took a look at all the alternatives, and maybe they're an AWS shop, so they wanted to go AWS, or they're a Microsoft shop, so they wanted to go with their versions. And then their IT team put a block in the road and said, nope, we can't do this. We don't have, this is not okay for our security needs. And Azul was the only one that ever passed that test when IT teams threw up that roadblock for the reasons Simon just mentioned. So I just want to point out, if you do start that process, that is the second most likely way, is if you start, if you didn't know that, and then it's too late to do anything different. I will give real quick before we get into the questions here. The most common question I get when I usually do these types of talks is, if my Oracle product came with Java, as it's like internal, Java is inside of the program, do I need a separate Java license? And the answer is no. But if you buy a product that didn't have Java embedded and it's running off the Java that's installed on your local machine, you do need one. So that's a lot of times it'd be tough for people like me who aren't technical experts to tell the difference. So Simon, let's see, what first question here.
Well, actually, that first question is a bit like the one you just answered, Shawn, which is like, okay, if I have an application that is using Java, how can I help? Well, as Shawn mentioned earlier on, a lot of applications are packaged with a free distribution of Java. But when you do security updates, so you start patching and an automated download, say from Oracle, that makes it immediately licensable. So the short answer is you would need a license. And the way Azul helps is we would just provide a direct alternative to take some of that cost burden away. So hopefully that helps. Second question here that we have is, there are scenarios within the customer is running Java because it's their end client's requirement and are resistant to change. How can Azul address this scenario? So this is where a customer, I believe the question is, that is committed and thinks that Oracle is the only alternative, and maybe it's an ISV or another partner like an MSP that's providing the application. How do we address that? Well, the most important thing is all of Java solutions in the Java SE space are OpenJDK, which means they are TCK tested. So we go through a testing process of 300,000 tests, 3,000 tests to ensure that we all are at the same standard. And Azul is no exception to that. What that means is that when people think about that type of solution provided by Oracle, what they're getting confused with is something that is OpenJDK as a standard versus Oracle. And it's usually they're looking for compliance with OpenJDK, and Azul is fully compliant with OpenJDK, which is the reason why we provide an alternative. So that sometimes becomes a little bit of an understanding conversation, just to make sure people know that this is equivalent. Any other questions?
Sure. I'll just take the last one here. I think I sort of answered, but just to clarify more, I'm using just a third-party application which works on Java. Do I need to purchase a Java license, or is it third-party vendor's responsibility to pack Java license with the application? Well, think about it like this. If the third-party vendor is going to avoid the cost of putting Java in their application if they can help it, because they don't want to pay it, they'd rather you have to pay that. Now, this is assuming you're using it for commercial purposes. And you're not using any of a certain feature set that would also require a license. So the answer is you probably do need a license.
Yeah. Hey, I've got somebody just directly ping me as well here. So I've got another one, which is, can't I just use free Java? Why shouldn't I just use that? Which, yes, you can use free Java, but there are a couple of things that you need to be aware of, right? If you want to move away from Oracle, is one, if you've been relying on support and providing a level of security patching around your Java applications, you are not going to get that if you go with a free solution, because you're completely reliant on what the OpenJDK community do, which is usually quarterly or usually 6 monthly, as an example. But the other thing about free as well is that usually it passes a cost of burden onto your DevOps team, and most people don't know this, right? So when you do updates in the OpenJDK world, there are significant updates that require massive amounts of regression testing versus what you would do with a paid solution. And that regression testing by itself is non-trivial. That can tie up some one or two development resources all the time. That's what they're doing. So it usually becomes a cost shifting exercise. You think you're saving money by going by free, but you're not. You're actually just passing the cost burden of that into your DevOps team. So that's another important thing to be aware of as well.
And I could say that the other answer we usually give is, can I just use a free version of Java? If you're small or if you're perfect is sort of the answer we give, because it is very easy to miss Java installations. That's one of the things we found most common with our clients is, they'll get 98% of them and then miss 2%. And that 2% ends up getting them required to have a license, or they were perfect and somebody brought in a device from home that connected. They did some work on that, had a Java that was not a free version. Like I said, you've got to be near perfect. Or if you're an extremely small organization who has a very diligent IT team, yeah, maybe. But most of our clients, it's either between they miss a Java installed, somebody updates one, somebody brings another device, or they're just using some commercial features which automatically turn the free versions into paid versions. Yeah, it's like, we'll send you those afterward. But that's the kind of thing that, it's in an ideal world, a perfect world, sure. In reality, not really. It's not really possible.
Hey, Shawn, just one quick correction here. I just had one of my colleagues ping me. So I misspoke. I think I said something like 300,000 TCK tests determine OpenJDK. It's actually between 80,000 and 150,000 tests. We're still talking about magnitude of tens of thousands of tests that go into being certified around OpenJDK. But just to say that, Azul is the exact equivalent of that for Oracle SE as well. Cool. Any other questions? Some really good questions here. So thanks very much for putting those in the chat. Well, with that, I think we've reached time. So again, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Shawn. Sort of brings our webinar series to an end as well. Hopefully we'll catch you on another webinar soon, but thanks again for joining, and thanks, Shawn.
Have a good day.